Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to this week's edition of Sisters Corner. I have with me here Inspector Kevin Taylor from West Yorkshire Police and Mohammed Ali from West Yorkshire Fire Service, and we've been talking about community safety, particularly around Halloween and bonfire night, and it's been a really interesting show so far. Thank you so much for making the time. These are really important things that we need to speak about, and one of the things, dear viewers, we talked about at the beginning is that nobody's trying to stop people having fun. It's just how we can have fun, but also have respect for people's safety, property, and for pets, and actually for the impact misuse of fireworks and bonfire night and bonfires can have on communities. As we know, it's dangerous. Matches are dangerous, fire is dangerous, but if you take some simple precautions, we can have fun and keep everybody safe. So just before the break, I was asking my colleagues here what the ask is, what can communities do, how can people help each other, how can neighbours look after each other, and Mohammed gave us his thoughts, and now, if that's okay, we'll pick up again with you, Kevin, with, you know, what do you think, what do we need our communities do to protect themselves around this time?
Okay, so firstly, I think it's important to point out, you know, that as a police service, we are the community are the police. It is community members that make up the police service, and that's really important that people know that we are normal people doing this work and we are here to protect our communities. Specifically, what can communities do to help us, I think is what you're asking. Well, there are a number of things. Firstly, I would encourage our communities to, wherever possible, attend an organised bonfire rather than having personal bonfires. It's much safer, it's much better organised, there are first aid facilities, food facilities and things like that in place, and it saves you having to do it yourself. And generally they are really reasonable from a cost perspective, and the firework displays are generally much larger and more impactful. So yes, I would encourage our communities to always attend a organised bonfire. Other things that communities can do, as I already touched on, is know where their young people are over this period. We would encourage our mums and dads, our aunties and uncles, grandmas, granddads, to just challenge their young people if they're going out, particularly late at night over this period. You know, where you're going, who you're going with, and what are you going to be doing. And if they're not happy, just maybe putting those calls into those young people and making sure that they are not out on the streets becoming involved in antisocial behaviour or criminality. It spoils the event for the rest of the communities. It makes Bradford look negative, and ultimately, you know, as I've already touched on, can lead to an arrest or a conviction, which we absolutely do not want to do that to our young people. Communities can also think about diversionary activities, so other things that they could host within the community that would entertain some of our young people over this period. So we've heard of things like midnight football over the bonfire period that was once organised. I know of a group that are thinking about having a street barbecue over this period. So including some sort of diversionary activity like that over the bonfire period would be you know, a really good idea. And look, the bonfire period for the police is the busiest period of our year. It is where our resources are stretched, and I would ask that our communities use their police resources, because we are their communities' resources, sparingly. So you know, we would ask that if you are going to ring 999, to just think for a moment, is it necessary, is it required, can it be dealt with by the 101 service, so for non-emergencies, and are the police actually required?
So Kevin, can I just check something? So when I think about 999, I think about threat to life,
yes,
you know, imminent danger, you know, broken limbs, you know, that level of emergency, yes, not just those things, but that level.
Yes.
And then the 101 number is the one where you might have a more minor injury, you know, but isn't going to result in your death immediately or the amputation of a limb. And I know I'm being quite dramatic, but that's kind of how loosely I understand it. Is that kind of right?
Yes. So 999 for emergencies, threat to life, serious offences being committed that we would need to respond to. So, and 101, when we talk about 101, that is for, you know, the less serious stuff where we wouldn't have to attend in an emergency. So from a police perspective, an emergency call to the police elicits a response within 15 minutes. A priority response to the police, we would look to be with our communities within an hour. So that kind of gives you a bit of an idea of our response times, really. And yes, in terms of our emergency responses, we would ask our communities at all times, but particularly over the bonfire period, to use those resources sparingly. What I would say is that we do have additional resources rotated to be on duty over that period. And in terms of tackling criminality, we will tackle criminality if we're faced with it over the bonfire period. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to spoil people's fun. We don't want to have to deal with people formally. So we would ask that people act in a responsible manner and have a fun and an enjoyable time.
Okay, great, that's really helpful. I'm just going to pick up with you again, Mohammed. So imagine the worst has happened, you know, and a bonfire has gone a bit awry and someone suddenly finds themselves on fire, you know, the clothes have caught fire or something. So what are the precautions? What's the sort of course of action people should take at that point?
I mean, in terms of your clothes catch fire, the simplest thing to do is stop where you are, drop to the ground and roll over. So you're taking the oxygen out, the fire triangle. So the fire triangle consists of oxygen, fuel and heat. So we need to eliminate one of the elements of that fire triangle to stop the fire. So in this case, if your clothes are on fire, it's the oxygen we're taking out when people drop to the ground and start rolling over.
So I'm just going to stop you there for a moment. Yeah. I am not going to drop to the ground, but should they drop to the ground wherever they are stood, or should they go outside and drop to the ground?
Well, ideally, wherever they are, they need to stop where they are, because if they're going to start running outside, then you've got a fresh supply of oxygen, which will increase the fire spread.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's stop, drop and roll. I think that's really important to say, you know, stop where you are, drop to the ground, roll around, and that starves the fire of oxygen, which is what feeds it and gives it life and lets it grow. And then what? Do they try to peel the clothes off? Do they ring the emergency services?
Especially if you've got some serious burns, you definitely need to contact the emergency services. That's 999 for the ambulance service, and they will come and deal with the injuries itself. I wouldn't start peeling the clothes and stuff off, because it could you could
cause more damage.
Yeah, more damage, and it's prone to infection as well.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of minor burns, so if someone has picked up a sparkler or they've gone to investigate a firework and it's gone off and they've got the tips of the finger are burned, what's...
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the first degree burns or superficial burns, and then run it under the cold tap of water for about 10 to 20 minutes to cool the temperature down on your hand or the area of burn, to cool it down to reduce the heat.
And then obviously get some attention, either go to your pharmacist, you can get to pharmacist, get someone to look at it if you're uncertain about it. Again, you've got 999, but you've also got the non-emergency number for the NHS as well.
Yeah, depending on seriousness of the burn.
Yeah. So you can get advice without having to ring 999 about more minor burns as well. So now, one thing that, I mean, there's lots of information to take in, but I think on both of the police and fire service website, there's details, and there will be lots of things online around this time, lots of campaigns, so do have a look. Now, one of the things that you've said is this is one of your busiest times as services, which clearly it is. Now, I've seen lots of stuff recently online and on Facebook and Twitter and things, and actually reported in the local press about the police, ambulance and fire, you know, coming under attack from people. I don't want to cast aspersions. I don't want to say they're all young people, because I'm sure, you know, numpties come in all shapes and sizes and ages. How does that... And I'm discussing this in a way from a more personal point of view. My brother is a police officer and he works in a different, he's not in West Yorkshire, but around you know, when there's particularly tense times, all of us as family members will have a mind to, is he less safe than normal? And he's my brother, he's a police officer, he's got a job to do, and I appreciate not always everyone appreciates that. But in terms of yourselves, you've got family as well, you've got friends, you know, does that add an extra bit of tension for you? Is that something that plays into your mind when you're out and about doing your jobs, or when your colleagues are out and about doing their frontline jobs?
I mean, it is a worry when you are out there in that sort of environment, and we've got families as well, children, and wife. She'll be probably concerned in terms of welfare on the night. Children will be concerned. We are running a campaign called More Than a Uniform campaign within the communities to give them the concept that we are humans as well behind that uniform. We have got families. It's on the screen. So we have got families. We are humans. We go back to our family as well, children and stuff like that. There's nothing difference between us and the community. We are part of that same community. We live within the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just saw on the screen there, we just flicked it up, the campaign, which is More Than a Uniform. And I know I've seen this around Bradford a little bit. And actually it does strike a chord, because you have a job, and your job is to keep people safe.
Yeah.
So, you know, is to keep my family, my nieces, my nephews, you know, people who I love safe. But then actually your job in itself entails a level of danger anyway. But then it seems to up the ante, and you know, people seem to think it's a little bit of sport to throw things at you and get in the way. Would it be fair also to say, if you are having to deal, say if a fire crew is attacked or something like that, and then you're having to deal with that, and if you've got injuries, the fire ambulance is having to deal with you, if they're attacked, then they're out of action as well. That has a knock-on effect, doesn't it? So then if somebody's grandmother has a heart attack, it means that actually people who would have gone to help are, you know, preoccupied elsewhere.
I mean, similarly for a fire service perspective, if people are setting fires, or if they're damaging a fire appliance, obviously needs to go off the run, basically go back into the workshops for repairs, then that will have a knock-on effect in terms of our response time. If there is another house fire where people are trapped, it could be your family members in there, and we are looking at probably getting a fire appliance from a neighbouring station. We could take an extra few minutes. Every second counts in a fire.
So it's really serious. And I know I've spoken to people before, police officers, you know, who've had to attend incidents and then have been injured themselves, you know, and it is devastating to families, isn't it? Because it can result to loss of life. But then also, like you said earlier, Kevin, these are members of your community as well, you know, and there's a job to do, and they're not easy jobs, are they? And let's be honest, I'm not going to pretend everyone isn't happy with the way, you know, public services do their jobs. Whether you're a council worker or a police officer, everyone's got an opinion on that, and that's fine. We're not here to say otherwise. But in terms of, you know, keeping the people out there doing the job safe, you know, what is our ask of communities?
I think firstly, Anne-Marie, from a police perspective, I'm glad that you've raised this, and we would absolutely condemn attacks on our fire service colleagues. It is despicable. These firefighters are here to keep us safe, and I absolutely cannot understand the mentality of anybody that would wish to harm our fire officers, and to that end, our police officers too. We are public servants. We are your public servants. We work for you. I cannot understand why anybody would want to do that. I'd also stress that it is a very, very small minority of our communities that would engage in this kind of behaviour. It is criminality. I would remind people that our fire appliances and our police officers and many of our police vehicles now carry on board CCTV. We will identify those responsible, and we will take action against those responsible. So it is unacceptable, and we will not tolerate attacks on our emergency services. And I think it's really important to make that clear. What would we would ask of our communities is, again, if you know where your family members are, where your loved ones are, and you discourage them from being out in gangs, in groups, on the streets at that night, we can reduce those levels of attacks.
Would it be fair to say sometimes, you know, just remember when you said about, you know, large groups and things, yeah, young people tend to hang around. Not all young people do tend to hang around in groups. That isn't necessarily always a bad thing in and of itself.
No.
And usually most nights start off with a bit of harmless fun, don't they?
Yes.
It's as quite often as the night progresses and a bit of silliness sets in and a little bit more giddiness and a little bit of, bravado. And then sometimes, I'm just saying it's not always organised, it's just, happens. So I think it's really important that actually families do have a word. And it may be that the young person doesn't always listen, because I've heard that sometimes parents go, what's the point? They don't listen. Actually, you don't know what gets through. So it's important you find a way. And if they won't listen to you, they might listen to an uncle or an auntie or an older cousin or somebody, and it's just sometimes having the words and getting it out there and said, and repeating your expectations, because the one thing you do with young people is you repeat, and you keep on doing it until you die, I think. But it's not a one-time conversation either, is it? So I think having a managed conversation with your children about what your expectations are around bonfire night and fireworks. The other thing that we haven't talked about with fireworks is essentially we're going into a long season now from Halloween. We've got Diwali at the moment, we bonfire, we've got Christmas coming up, and then we've got New Year, and then it's probably just a hop, skip and a jump to Eid actually. So it's potentially the next 5 months it's just firework season. A long time ago it used to just be November, didn't it? That seems to have gone. But then the other thing is weddings as well. So the nuisance fireworks, if you like, and the number of people who I've seen on social media and my extended friend and family network complaining about fireworks at 1 and 2 in the morning. So again, it's not people, and this is a personal thing, it's not about saying if you want to enjoy fireworks, enjoy them safely, enjoy them properly, but remember everyone else. How much of a problem is sort of wedding fireworks?
I mean, depending on what time let's set them off, sometimes it's probably midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And people, I think, need to understand that our local community, your neighbours, they'll probably be sleeping. They might need to get up early in the morning for a duty, so it'll be disturbing their sleeping pattern. They'll be tired during the day when they go back to, on work. So it's important that people respect others as well within the community and ensure that they do, if they are going to enjoy the fireworks, we don't have any issue with that. But be mindful of your neighbours as well and your local community.
Would it be fair to say, in the same way in the highway code, so we have, no peeping your horns after 11, would that be a respectable enough time? I don't think we've got stipulations, but would that be a sensible enough time to go, you know what, that's a good cut-off point. Most people are ready for bed by then, whether they've got little children, whether they've got elderly, whether they've got people who are poorly. I remember one year I was really ill and I couldn't sleep, and part of the problem was the fireworks. So it depends, what's going on with you as well. So if people are going to let fireworks off on during and around wedding times, any time I suppose, but at the moment we're talking about weddings, just be respectful enough to do it a little bit earlier. And if you come home with the wedding party after that time, maybe just leave it till the next day. Because most people are asleep, and it is a joyous occasion, but actually the last thing you want, and certainly I would want, is all my neighbours cursing me as I start the next bit of my life, with my new partner. And when I say cursing, I'm not saying they're putting a Halloween type hex on you or anything. I'm just saying in terms of you don't want people to be frowning and disturbing your neighbourly relations as well.
I think, sorry to interrupt, I think Mohammed has covered that really. This comes down to respect. So this comes down to just having a thought for somebody else before you go and let fireworks off at 1, 2 in the morning. It is antisocial to engage in that kind of behaviour. The last thing we want to do is spoil people's fun, so do it a bit earlier, do it in a safe manner, but think about your communities and the impact that your actions are going to have on those other people. And if we all do that, Bradford would be, and wider West Yorkshire would be a safer and more pleasant place to be. So I think the word respect covers a lot of this agenda.
And it is possible, isn't it? So, in terms of having fun, yes, you can have fun, but what looks like fun to you, just have a pause, and it's that power of 10, isn't it? If you just pause for 10, it's a very Islamic thing as well, pausing and thinking about your actions, pausing and thinking about what's making you angry or upset, pausing. So, that's really powerful in this sort of more secular society, whatever, you know, it's mindfulness. It's just going, is this something I really want to do? Do I need to do it? Do I need to do it with them now? But the big message that I've heard as we've talked about it today is it is absolutely possible to have a safe bonfire night. You know, go to an organised one. If you are, you know, if you're determined to have something small and very local, then keep it small and local, you know, and pay heed to what kind of things you're burning. Ideally don't, but if you insist, you know, and the other thing is people do pile up things, don't they? So you've got tip places where people put things. Try not to do that as well, because that means people do sometimes set things alight as they walk by. I know a few years ago when I used to work as a community youth worker, that was one of our big problems at that time, was people were just gathering things up because they wanted to burn it on bonfire night, and then other people were doing it before them.
Yeah, because sorry to cut in. The other danger you've got is people piling it outside in the garden, stacking it up, you know, waiting for the bonfire night itself. So sometimes you get 3-4 weeks in advance, and somebody could come round, even drop a match or a cigarette, that could actually ignite and cause a fire. If it's close to your property, it could then damage the property, and people within the property could be affected. Your neighbours could be affected with that. So try not to start piling stuff outside. And the other bit is in terms of your wheelie bins, make sure they're secure, they're away from the property itself, because we do tend to get people filling wheelie bins right next to the windows stacked there. So if somebody did set a light, then it's going to stop your escape route if you need to get out from the windows.
I'd never thought of it like that.
Because if your bedroom's upstairs and then you've got wheelie bin underneath and somebody set the light to it, and then that, if you're going to think about getting out your window, then you've got all that flame and smoke coming up in that direction. So keep it away from your property.
Really practical advice that, isn't it? Because I was just thinking, where have I kept my wheelie bins? And, and actually, one of them potentially is under an escape route. You know, it's at the side of the house, but it is under, it's one of the windows that'd be most easy to climb out of, if I'm honest, in terms of things going wrong. And that's just showing that I don't have an escape plan, by the way, because I wouldn't be having this conversation. So that's really important. And people can get advice on escaping a house during fire
and if they
on your
contact
website.
the local fire station, and they'll come out and do a safe and well visit, where they'll look at risks, like I mentioned before, and then put interventions in place, ensuring they've got working smoke detectors, testing them regularly once a week, and then go through the escape plan with them so they know what to do in event of fire, so they don't panic.
Absolutely. So I'm afraid we've only got a few minutes left. So I know we've just talked about so much important stuff. Have we got a chance to, one thing we didn't mention was, and I'll just say it quickly for you, Mohammed, is buy your fireworks from reputable buyers. So, you know, you've got all these corner shops and etc., and you just don't know the quality, and you don't know where they come from and whatever, whether they're duds or whether they're extra powerful, so just be careful about that. Basically, you've got a minute if you'd like to just say what you'd like to stress, what final points, and just for information, you can go to both websites of West Yorkshire Fire and West Yorkshire Police, and there will be some guidance there, and there are the sort of voluntary sector organisations that work on these issues as well.
Yeah,
so over to you.
From the fire service perspective, follow the firework code if you are going to be utilising or using fireworks at home. Be safe on the night and enjoy the bonfire night.
And stop, drop and roll.
Stop, drop and roll if you close catch fire.
Yes, absolutely. And what about you, Kevin?
Yeah, from a police perspective, do have an enjoyable and fun bonfire night. Do make sure that your friends and family do not get drawn into antisocial behaviour and criminality. Do say hello to your police officers whilst they are out there on the street. Do be mindful that your emergency services are stretched over this period of time. It is one of our most busiest periods, so do use your resources appropriately. And yeah, have a fun time.
And from me, I suppose, picking up on that, and thank you so much, would be, yes, have a fun time, have a bit of a care, use those organised bonfire and events and activities. There's a lot around Bradford, and ultimately a bit of respect and concern for life, limb, property and pets. Don't forget the four-legged pets. Keep them home, keep them safe, and inshallah we will see you on the next episode of Sisters Corner, and thank you to my guests again.
Thank you very much.